What if I told you one of the biggest guitarists in the world got fired on live television in front of everybody? Because he was so high, he played the wrong song, got into a fist fight with a singer, and ended his career in 30 seconds. Here's how CC Deville gave Poison something to believe in, a pink slip.
Like, subscribe. Thank you.
So it's 1991, and the band Poison is, for all intents and purposes, on top of the world. These guys had clawed their way out of Pennsylvania, moved to LA with nothing, and basically willed themselves into stardom. They weren't just some other band, they were an idea. Bret Michaels, Ricky Rocket, Bobby Dahl had been grinding it out in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, in a band called Paris. They knew Pennsylvania wasn't their ticket. They needed to go where the action was. So they packed up, sold everything they had, and drove a beat-to-hell Chevette across the country to LA. They arrived with no money, no connections, and a shared dream. They lived in a single cramped room in the back of a dry cleaner, starving, plastering their flyers on every telephone pole on the Sunset Strip, and fighting for scraps. The first album, Look What the Cat Dragged In, was a massive, unexpected hit. Sleazy, raw, and it totally exploded. Then their second album, Open Up and Say Ah, was even bigger, spawning Nothing But a Good Time, and their number one ballad, Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And by the time their third album, Flesh and Blood, dropped in 1990, they were a stadium-filling machine. That album had Unskinny Bop and the monster ballad Something to Believe In. They're everywhere. They're kings of the glam metal world. But there was a problem, a huge problem, and that problem's name was CC Deville. CC, or Bruce Anthony Johannesson, as he was born, was chaos from the start. His entire career was a series of failing upwards, fueled by luck and image. Before he ever landed in Poison, he had already fumbled one of the biggest opportunities in rock. Back in 1982, he was a kid in New York, and he managed to get an audition for Kiss. This was the spot that would eventually go to Vinnie Vincent. CC shows up to the audition, completely drunk out of his mind, stumbles in, looks at Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. Paul, trying to be professional, says, "Hey, CC, glad you can make it. You want to play one of the hits?" And CC just sneers at him. "Nah, I don't like those songs. They suck. Teach me one of your new ones." Then he walks over, unstraps Gene Simmons' bass, puts it on, and starts fumbling around. Gene and Paul look at each other like, what the hell do we even get into? The audition's over before it even starts. They throw him out. He had blown a shot at the big time. So CC drifts from New York to LA, a failed Kiss audition under his belt, and he finds out about this Pennsylvania band, now called Poison, who were looking for a guitarist. Poison had already been rehearsing with the guy, a young, quiet, incredibly talented player, a guy named Slash. Yep, that Slash. He could play circles around everybody. Blues rock monster. But the band, especially Bret and Bobby, had a problem with him. He wasn't pretty. He wore jeans and a t-shirt. Didn't fit the glitter and hairspray image that they were building. Slash himself said they were more about lipstick and makeup than rock and roll. So they decided to hold another audition, and in walks CC Deville. Shows up with a tiny practice amp, a load of bleached hair clashing with his polka dot shirt, and according to legend, about 10 girls with him. He walks in and says, "Hey, I'm CC, and I've been in LA for 10 minutes. I don't have a band, I don't have a place to live. Do I have the gig?" Plugs in, plays some licks, including one song that he wrote that was going to be a hit, the main riff to Talk Dirty to Me. Chuck in a Flintstones theme song for good measure, and the band is sold. Not because he was the best player, Slash blew him away, but because he was Poison. He was the party. Loud, obnoxious, and totally looked like a rock star. They hired him right on the spot. They chose the cartoon character over the musician. And for a few years, that party-first attitude worked. It fueled their music and their image. They were the band that was always having nothing but a good time. The music videos were just neon-soaked parties. But by 1991, the party was starting to turn dark. The whole band was deep into booze and drugs, but CC was on another level. His coke addiction was legendary. It was costing him his health, and it was costing the band their sanity. The Flesh and Blood tour was nicknamed the Flesh and Blood Clot Tour because the tension and the fighting were so bad. CC would be late for the shows. He'd fall asleep on stage, start playing different songs in the middle of a set. During one show in Orlando, he just stopped playing, walked off. So the band had to finish the show as a three-piece. And the other guys, especially Bret Michaels, were trying to get clean. Bret, a diabetic, knew the lifestyle was a death sentence for him. He was starting to transition from party boy frontman to serious musician and businessman. And CC at that point was starting to become a liability. A huge, glittery, walking disaster. And the tension between Bret and CC was so thick you could cut it with a knife. They were fighting constantly, screening matches, shoving. He was toxic. There's the famous incident in Florida where Bret allegedly threw a chair at CC's head backstage. The band was a ticking time bomb by this point, but CC was just becoming arrogant, telling Brett the band's new, more serious songs just totally sucked. He wanted to play the party anthems. But the ticking time bomb was set to go off at the 1991 MTV Video Music Awards. This was, at the time, the single biggest night in music. It was the show. Every single person in the music industry was watching. Poison was booked to perform. It was a massive opportunity. Flesh and Blood had their most personal song, Something to Believe In, which Brett wrote after his bodyguard died. They're trying to prove that they're more than just makeup. This was their chance to show everybody that they're still the kings, even as his new grunge sound was starting to bubble up from Seattle. They're scheduled to play Unskinny Bop, one of the biggest hits. And they did, kind of. I mean, you can see it on the video. They're playing Unskinny Bop through what apparently was supposed to be another intro from Arsenio Hall, who was hosting it. But somehow, their whole jam just fell apart. And it's pretty obvious the guys on stage are confused. Bret Michaels starts singing another chorus, has CC give him a chord, and then he's like, "Are you ready to talk dirty to me?" Where CC just launched right into it. Now, of course, there are some conflicting stories there because some are saying that they weren't even supposed to play Talk Dirty to Me. But if that were the case, why would Bret then say, "Are you ready to talk dirty to me?" So to CC's credit, he was right on cue, launched right into the main riff of that. Even though he flubbed a couple of the chords and just kind of got nuts as he went through, and the guitar signal gets interrupted at a certain point during it. But nevertheless, if they were intending on doing Unskinny Bop, well, it just went to hell anyway. Nevertheless, you could definitely see the looks on the band's faces throughout as they're trying to suss out basically what CC is going to be doing next. You got CC running around, high-fiving the crowd, and the rest of the band is just trying to salvage what they felt was the single most important performance of their career at that point. But unfortunately, it turned out to be a disaster. All-out humiliation on TV. So the song mercifully ends, the band walks off stage, and all hell breaks loose. Bret Michaels is absolutely pissed, lunges at CC backstage. So what the fuck was that? The screaming starts instantly. Bret is in CC's face. "You just ruined us. You ruined everything." The CC, still high out of his mind, starts screaming back. And that's the part that seals his fate. He doesn't apologize. Doesn't say it was a mistake. He screams, "I played Talk Dirty to Me because Unskinny Bop sucks. It was sabotage. He did it on purpose." And then the screaming became shoving. And then the fists started flying, and Bret and CC are in a full-blown fight backstage at the VMAs, seconds after they got off stage. Bobby Dahl jumps in, also throwing punches at CC. It's a 3-on-1 brawl by this point. Security has to rush in. Band management has to pull them apart. Total meltdown. Ricky Rocket described it as the most pathetic, sad, disgusting display he had ever seen. So the fight is broken up. CC is dragged away, and that's it. It's over. The band huddles up. The decision is instant and unanimous. He's gone. Fired. Bret, Bobby, and Ricky are all in agreement. They cannot do it anymore. So now he's officially out of the band. They finished the Flesh and Blood tour with a session player. And then they made a call. They brought in Richie Kotzen. Kotzen, of course, is like a severe legato shredder. Everything CC wasn't. Young, sober, total virtuoso, a musician's musician. And they went in the studio and made Native Tongue, a serious, bluesy, funky rock album. Musically, it was their best work. And it bombed. Completely failed. The fans did not want serious. They wanted the party. They wanted the cartoon. They wanted CC Deville. And what about CC? Well, his life went into a bit of a nosedive. He was out of the band that he helped build, a pariah to them, and his addiction was in full control. He formed a band called Needle Park, a grim reference to the drug-heavy film The Panic in Needle Park, and he was a mess. He not only fumbled the VMA performance, he fumbled his way out of the biggest band in glam metal. He had gone from the king of the party to the punchline. He would eventually get sober after a long, hard fight, and he would eventually reunite with Poison in 1999, and they go on to have hugely successful tours, reclaiming their status as one of rock's most fun live bands. But that night at the 1991 VMAs stands as one of the most infamous self-destructive moments in rock and roll history. For Poison, it was the night that the party officially ended. Not with a bang, but with a fist fight, a few bars of the wrong song, and a pink slip. Smack that subscribe button. Smack the like button. To my subscribers, you rock. Thank you so much. Everybody else, join the family, and thank you for watching.